Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Susan Lightfoot-Schemp. I'm a program officer with the Wallace Center and have the great pleasure of working with my colleagues, Andrew Carberry and Annalena Kazikas, who are also on the call today. And we just are grateful for all of you for showing up to learn about the Community Food Systems Mentorship Program. Thanks for your interest. And we're going to have a kind of a quick presentation here at the beginning just to talk about the program itself, sort of some framing around mentorship and how mentorship is distinct from kind of technical assistance more generally, and then save a good amount of time, probably half of our call today, which is only 30 minutes in total time, but save 15 minutes for Q&A. So answer any questions that you might have about the program, application process, what to expect, etc. Annalena is going to be monitoring the chat box, so making sure to catch your questions as they come in, and she'll do her best to answer them as we go for questions that that she can just address immediately, and she'll also grab ones that we can discuss during that Q&A section as well. Just a couple of quick technical things. As I had asked, please keep yourselves muted during the call. And then as we get to the Q&A section, there is a way to raise your hand, of which, Andrew, remind me, how does that work? If you click on the participants at the bottom, right? And then there's an option where it'll say to raise your hand. So you can click on that, raise your hand. We'll see who's got their hand raised. We'll call on you. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Any other kind of technical pieces, Andrew and Annalena, I need to make sure and remind folks?
I think for people on the phone, well, we have a presentation, but we'll be talking through everything, and then during Q&A, you can just unmute and we'll listen for you. So we wanted to give you a chance to participate as well.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, great. So let's get rolling. Andrew, you want to go to the next slide? So just real quickly, because there may be some folks here who haven't heard yet about this amazing thing the Wallace Center kicked off this year called the Food Systems Leadership Network, of which the mentorship program is a component of. So the FSLN is a new national community of practice for food systems leaders like yourselves who are using food systems as a tool for social change. I know many of you, are operating a really wide variety of programs, from maybe youth development through farming, or food hubs, farm to school. I mean, there's so many different ways that we all intersect with food. And really the goal of this community of practice is strengthening our capacity as food systems leaders so that we can get better at this work of social change through food. We're really focusing on leadership development, on strengthening our organizations, recognizing that our organizations are really the vehicle through which we are able to affect change in our communities. And if our organizations aren't thriving and equitable and really alive and healthy, then our work in our communities is not going to be very effective. So focusing in on organizational effectiveness is kind of a key strategy with the FSLN. And then kind of the third pillar of this community of practice is recognizing that there is immense wisdom, knowledge, and expertise within this community. And so our goal is to create opportunities for sharing that wisdom, knowledge, and expertise. And so the mentorship program is really very much kind of solidly within all three of those program approaches or goals for the program. As you know, we offer a wide variety of opportunities through the FSLN, from mentorship to leadership retreats to the nonprofit boot camp, our online digital community of practice platform, really trying to meet you where you're at and provide a lot of different opportunities so that you can kind of take advantage of what works best for you. And this network is open to everyone who's involved in food systems work, and there is no cost for membership or participation in our programs. Next slide. So just quickly about the network, just keep going. It's amazing how much that's grown in the first year. We just launched in January this last year. We've already got about 1,600 members across the country. So clearly, striking a nerve with all of you in terms of the kinds of support services that you're looking for as you're doing your work in community. And there's really been a great amount of interest in this mentorship program. So I'm just going to quickly touch on sort of the high-level goals of this program is, kind of going back to my point about connecting food systems leaders with one another. That's really one of the primary outcomes here that we're aiming for, is building relationships of solidarity and support across this movement. And the leaders that we've selected and partnered with as mentors are real network weavers in their own right, and represent very deep communities and networks that they are opening up to all of you and wanting to connect you into as well. So that's definitely one of the strategies here with this program. Secondly, we're really wanting to just create space for that exchange of knowledge, wisdom, and resources. And thirdly, to really support each of you and the mentees in building your capacity to lead systems change in your communities. Just a couple of quick things about the program so far. We've had 2 cohorts with a total of 45 mentees that have participated in 2018. And based on our evaluation data, 100% of participants feel more confident in their leadership capacity, and 100% have made changes to their practices based on their experience in this mentorship program. So it really is effective, and it's also, we'll show you a word cloud in a few minutes here, but just has been a very transformative experience for a lot of the people who have participated in it so far. Next slide. Right, so those are just some of the words that people have used to describe their experience: supportive, productive, refreshing, inspiring, helpful, thought-provoking, concrete. So it's really been a positive experience for a lot of people. I'm just going to very quickly, I know Andrew, I've gone over time, so I'm going to do this next slide in brief. But one thing that I just want to point out is that I think it's important for anyone who's considering applying for this program to really kind of understand the distinction between mentorship and technical assistance. I did a little bit of research just to see, what does mentor mean? And it comes from the Greek word mentos, which means purpose, spirit, passion, and intent. And it's also defined as a wise advisor. And so, all of the information that we've been gathering from the mentors and the mentees so far is what we've been learning is that, mentorship is really based on relationship. It's about developing a relationship with someone who is perhaps more experienced than you are, or has different perspective or different kinds of experience that can really help you as you develop as a leader and as you are doing your work in your own communities. The mentors really have no agenda other than to support you in your leadership journey. That is distinct from a consultant or someone who provides technical assistance, in that a consultant is someone who is hired to do something for you. There's a very specific agenda involved. It's a more kind of transactional relationship that happens between, say, a technical assistance provider or a consultant than it is with a mentor. And I think it's just important for us to kind of clarify that relationship, because some of you, may be seeking really specific technical support as you're doing your work in community, and this may or may not help you in really finding that information or that technical support. What mentorship is about is really something that you do. It's not something that you get from the mentor, but it's about building a relationship with a thought partner, with an advisor who will support you in your development as a food systems leader. So with that, I'm going to pass that over to Andrew, who can talk more about the program itself. And Andrew, feel free to add any of your thoughts on that difference between mentorship and technical assistance.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll get into some of that as we go through. And one thing on this slide I wanted to say is that I hear from the mentors as well that they're learning, and and that they, in helping someone, they're solidifying their own experience. So it's, especially Malik, who's pictured here, always says it's a two-way thing. So here is the cohort for this spring. These are the 9 mentors that you can apply to work with. And I want to encourage you, if you're interested in applying, to look through each of their pages. They each have a link to their own page on the application that has a little bit more about them, their bio, their areas of expertise. So if it matches up with something you're working on, and then also who they would like to work with, which is really important for the match, because as Susan said, the match is really vital to having a good relationship with the mentor and getting where you need to go. So take a look at that. And they do, as we'll talk later, it's a self-selecting process between you and the mentor. So they do look at that. They are looking for specific people to work with. So what to expect? It's an 8-hour commitment. The mentors have about 8 hours to work with each mentee. Some of that can go up and down based on availability of the mentee. Sometimes if they're not able to commit, then that can go to someone else. But it's really a lot more than 8 hours, because that's time you're spending with someone one-on-one, talking through things, and going over things. They have additional time where they might be sending you resources or referrals. And so after each call, and it comes out to about once a week, once you get started, having a call, which is really frequent for this type of thing. So then there's the call, and then in between there's things to do, and sometimes it's like it could be just changing your practice. And I worked with a mentor before, and we meet once a week, and if I read the thing or do the thing right after we meet, then I have a week to practice it, and it kind of changes my perspective that week. And then we come back and we share about it. If I wait till the night before and do it, then it's not as powerful, because I don't have as much time to think and work with information. So it's important to block off time after your calls to follow up on things. Some of the topics that past mentees I've worked on were, it's all over the place, but organizational strategies, how to be a supervisor, people that have grown into a new position, especially advancing racial and social equity in food systems work. Career development is a common one, and strategies for community organizing. And a lot of these are things that you can't perfect. They're kind of arts, and so it's helpful to have someone to talk through. As you get started, so more on what to expect. There's the mentee is really responsible for outlining what they want to work on, having specific things, and keeping up with that throughout the period. Now I have some of the past actually that were just in the program this fall mentees, Erica and Ryan. So I wanted to see, Erica, maybe first, if you wanted to unmute and just share a little bit about your experience of it, who you worked with, and just your experience in the program.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Erica Bloom. I'm from Growing Hope in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and I worked with Miles Gordon this past fall, and I chose him as my first choice because I thought he was a really good fit with the work that I'm doing on community food projects. And he does a lot on community gardens engagement, farmers markets, youth garden projects, and has his own consulting business on food systems. So I think, I really tried to choose someone that I thought had experience in what I was doing in my current job, or things that I, wanted to grow into. So I'd really suggest researching the people that you're interested in working with and seeing that it's a good fit. There's definitely opportunities to work with someone that, you may never meet otherwise. And this is just a great opportunity to talk to someone who has a lot of experience in the work that you're doing. So I would just try and choose who you're interested in with some intent. And then one of the things, that I think was really helpful for me is having some goals for the calls and really kind of setting up on the front end some things that I wanted to discuss with Miles, and really figuring out, what are the questions that I've kind of been grappling with in my current job and professionally, personally, some of the challenges and goals that I have, and set that up with your mentor. And Miles was really good for giving me a lot of feedback on things. And I would say every call we talked about something different, but there was a common theme of, my professional development goals and things that, I've been thinking about in my role at Growing Hope. And so I felt like having something really concrete to explore with Miles before each call was really important, so that he could respond and offer, insightful suggestions, and instead of us just kind of getting on the call and him saying, well, what do you want to talk about? And me saying, I'm not really sure. I'd really encourage you to think about in the front end of the mentorship, what are your longer term goals for the program? And then for each call, thinking through what are the things that you want to talk about. Because that'll just really help move things along, and I think you'll get more out of it. And then the other thing I really found helpful was, thinking about this mentorship program, it's not separate from what you're doing day to day, or it shouldn't be. If there's things that come up that challenge you in the call, I would, suggest trying to incorporate that into your week. Or if something comes up during your week, jotting that down and using it on the call so that you can integrate these things into your work and really grow from them. And I want to just say it's such a rare opportunity to have someone kind of a little bit external to your life, talk through your professional goals and personal goals. And I would really just, think about what do you want to get from this, and work with your mentor on setting up those goals and kind of tracking the progress that you're making with them. Because I think that's really the best part about this, is kind of seeing where you were before you started, and then kind of now looking back at the end. So those are just a few of my thoughts, and happy to talk one-on-one or answer questions later.
Great, thanks, Erica, for sharing that. And it really is, you've got to put in your work in it to get what you want out. We want to save time for Q&A, but I wanted to give Ryan a chance to share as well. Maybe if there's anything different than what you expected going in, or just what would you have wanted to know before you applied, if you're able to unmute and share. I know we had Ryan on the call from Mississippi. Maybe while he's working on that, I'll go ahead to the next thing and just chime in.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, sorry, I had to do the dual click on the computer and my phone. So yeah, I thought Erica kind of summed it up really, really well. I would just want to kind of piggyback on it is great to kind of like have an idea of what it is you want to talk about. In fact, there is a document that's shared to kind of help structure that. But there are things that come up in the day-to-day, and where I work with an organization, sometimes I just can't like bounce that off of some people because they might not have like the expertise. That was the real beautiful thing. And I worked with Anupama Joshi. I work on a farm to school program in Mississippi. And obviously she at the time was the executive director for Farm to School, so it was a perfect fit. So I didn't really have to think through that too much. But she was really helpful, and just like also like kind of like talking through some of the day-to-day things. So I just want to echo that because I mean there's no more beautiful time than the present to kind of like talk about what's going on in the present moment, and then really kind of seeing what emerges from that and builds from that. I think that's what's been helpful, and just trying to be able to kind of like think, well, what do I do now? But yeah, I mean, not to take up too much time, but I think Erica did a great job, and those are just kind of my additions.
And I see we've got some questions coming in that we'll kick over to you guys when we get to the end. But I wanted to share some information on the application. We've had questions about who should apply, and this is really as far as what level, and it is for executive directors. It's also for program staff, people in between, and it's more about your capacity, as you've heard, like your ability to put time into it and where you are in your career or where your organization is, as far as if you're prepared to make changes or prepared to take this on. Um, and as far as the process, there's an organizational capacity assessment. That's a separate form you can download through the website and fill out. And that's really key to starting off. The mentors do review those with the applications, not so much as do I want to accept someone, but it's more in preparing, thinking about the things they want to work on. Does it match up with what the needs are of the organization? So that's really important to fill out. You can select your first and second choice on the application because it is a matching process. You can also just select one, but that gives lower chances. And you can also select your two and then say you're willing for us to match you with someone else if we get a lot for any one or two people. So once those come in, once you apply, we will screen applications to make sure they're complete, and then we pass those on to the mentors, and they review and select who they want to work with. So that's, like I said, how they share who they want to work with, and that's how they get to pick. So when you're filling out your application, just encourage you to be honest about your current status, when you want to get through the mentorship, because that's the best way to get started. And then consider before you apply why you're seeking this. Why you're not seeking out technical assistance? Why do you want a mentor instead of that? Susan, anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I'm just going to add, I think it's really important to be really honest in your application, because just remember that the mentors they're looking for, like their question in their mind is, can I provide supportive and meaningful mentorship to this person? And so they really need to know, like, who are you? And why is it that you're seeking mentorship? And what is the challenge or the question that you're dealing with right now that is sort of the driving cause of you seeking mentorship? So I think it's really important for you to, be open and vulnerable in your application, because the mentors, as they're reading your application, they're looking for that connection. And they need to know, am I going to be able to help this person? And if there isn't enough information there, they're not going to be able to see a connection or a fit.
Thanks. Yeah, the more information you can provide reasonably is helpful to give them something to go on. Okay, so key dates. The application closes January 15th. That's the most key date right now. And then it runs from February 15th to June 15th. So that's when you would be working with your mentor. And these dates are on the website as well. But I really want to get to your questions, and I love tortoises. So,
Fun fact, Andrew has a tortoise.
Anyways, this article represents, and it said the best mentors the relationship is first, and then you get to the work. And so another thing to expect, like the first call is really getting to know someone. It's not like, okay, I need to figure this problem out. That's not shouldn't happen on the first call. Annalena, what questions should we be
Yeah, I think we had a really interesting one come through from Gil Frank right now, asking if a team of 2 people can work with a mentor if they're preparing for succession, if that is, eligible.
I think so. I mean, we had a team based here in New Orleans that worked with the same mentor, and it was really effective for them. So just lay out your case in your application. And I think that, our mentors are really open to that. It would still be the same amount of hours in total that you would have to be able to work with that mentor. But sure, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be okay.
Andrew, maybe go back to the timeline page so we can keep that up there.
Yeah.
Cool. We did have a question about scheduling, and so you are able to work with your mentor on that first call to determine the best schedule moving forward in your 4-month period, in terms of whether you'll have one call every 2 weeks or however that works out. So it's really up to you and your mentor to decide that.
And the calls can be shorter or longer. Some have done like 3-hour calls, I think, just like sessions. And some people do more 1 hour. Most people do like 1 hour calls. Let's see. I see one coming in about issues beyond the shores of the U.S. and this is for U.S. based organizations, but but yes, they are, and especially if you look at Anupama, her experience and her interest, she's interested in international issues.
I think
We
there
did
was a question about whether or not you needed to be associated with an organization. That is a requirement for eligibility, is having a association or relationship with a community-based organization that is working in food systems. So if you are a freelancer or consultant, maybe reach out to us directly and let's talk about your situation. But in general, that is a kind of basic eligibility, is being staff or board member or volunteer with a community-based organization.
And Susan, maybe you can also, the question from Kristen that just came in about having a food-focused program within an organization. Do they fill out the organizational capacity matrix for their program or for the wider organization?
Oh, that's a great question. I would suggest doing the best that you can to talk about, your program within the organization, especially if you're in like a big major organization that's maybe your small unit within that much larger organization. I would suggest doing it for your team or your unit. There's a couple other questions. Christine has a question here about racial equity, gender equity. Yeah, Christine, any kind of issue or challenge that you're encountering or wanting to discuss, I think it's a really kind of open forum for whatever it may be. So if you're looking to maybe answer some questions around gender equity, if you want to reach out to me directly, I could give you some suggestions of maybe who would be good to work with around that issue in the current mentor pool.
Let's see, is there a question on the phone?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.
Have we gotten all the ones that are in the chat box?
There's one more that just came through. I can just read it out loud from Caitlin. She says, I see that eligibility is for staff at nonprofit organizations and those with fiscal sponsors. She works as the food systems coordinator at a local public health agency that works closely with nonprofit organizations on community food projects leadership and capacity development. Would her organization be eligible?
I think so. I would suggest go ahead and apply. Yes.
Michael is asking about like a one-pager. Do we have something that we can share, that he can share with his colleagues that describes this program and others? And I think we can follow up this call and send out some supporting materials.
Yeah, I think we have emails from registration, so we can send. We do need to update our one-pager. That's a good point with our current round. So we'll do that and get that out.
Any other questions in the chat box?
Gil's asking about the slides and the audio after the session. So yep, they'll be available up on the mentorship page on the FSLN. I can send that link through again, but we'll have this up there for future views. And Kristen has a great question about how the mentors are selected.
Sure, we did a call for nominations for mentors this last year and received, I think, about 40 amazing applications. And then our team at the Wallace Center did our best to select a cohort that represents the diversity of kind of points of view and lived experiences that are representative of the communities that we all are involved in and come from. And we also decided to add a couple of more mentors to the cohort for this next year, because we didn't have an Indigenous perspective or a Black woman on the cohort, which we felt were two really important points of views and lived experiences to have as part of this cohort. So we did some kind of direct outreach and brought on board Ade and Karen onto the mentorship cohort for this spring. And so everyone, really shared their experience with us and their interest in being a mentor. I think that was also a really important component of this, is that they were really seeking this kind of opportunity to provide mentorship to others.
And we do have a hand raised. Zachery Girls, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. And then I know we are coming up on time.
Hi, yeah. Thank you for doing this. This is really cool that you offer mentorship on things like this. But so for being somebody that is not connected necessarily currently with a staff, board member, volunteer, etc., but I'm interested in doing organic farming. So for example, like I've donated vegetables to homeless community like programs. But what I'm wondering is like whether I should talk with you or talk with like talk with one of the mentors about whether or not yeah, like for business related activities, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you send us a follow-up message, an email, and we can discuss your kind of particular situation, because there may be some other resources that we could help connect you into.
Sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
There was a question about the number of mentees, and so this is the third round. We've had 45, I think, go through the past year, and then we'll have 27 this spring. With they each mentor will have up to or at least 3, and if there's pairs, there will be more. So we've had a few pairs in the past, but yeah, so there's 27 slots. And it looks like we're at time, so I do yeah, we appreciate everyone joining us today, and Erica and Ryan for sharing your experience of the program. And yeah, so we'll send a recording, we'll send the slides out, and you can get in touch if you have any additional questions.
Yeah, I'm putting my email address in the box over here too, and I'll add Andrew's and Annalena, if y'all could put y'all's in as well, in case you have any follow-up questions about your particular application or your situation, whether or not you'd be eligible for the program. And with that, thanks everybody for being here with us today, and really appreciate your time and your interest, and we hope to see your applications coming in the next couple of weeks.